right, Kimberly, last thing, can you share it to my regular page, or I have to do it?
I can do it. I'm logged in as you and Brett, so now, and I see you live now. I'm going to do a quick share from both of your accounts, and then I'll log back on as myself.
Okay. So,
This is very complicated.
I'm confirming that I see you and I hear you.
all right, I'm hanging up on you. Text me if you need me.
All right.
Bye. All right, so we are live right now, Bill, so don't say anything nasty about Brett.
Okay, I'll try to keep that under control.
Right, and after we go live, what Kimberly does is she'll edit out this top front, and then she'll send it back to you if you want to send it to your people or your followers, or what have you.
You live now?
We are.
Okay,
We are.
cool.
So let me just,
Start in a few minutes.
yeah, I just want to get my pages all settled here.
Finish my graham crackers. We're good to go.
As long as you have your graham crackers, bro.
Little snack. Food.
They're the best, aren't they?
Unbelievable. It's been a while.
Good.
Yeah, that's comfort food from like junior high for me, I think.
Still my comfort food years later.
Hi, Heidi. All right, so I have this.
Crackers, we're good to go.
As long as you have your graham crackers, bro.
Little snack. Food.
All
They're the best, aren't they?
Unbelievable.
right. Okay.
It's been a while. Recorded?
Yeah, that's
See,
that's
Steph-
comfort food from like junior high for me, I think.
Still my comfort food years later.
So Stephanie, I can see. I'm good. All right. So now I can see us. This. All right.
I'm hearing feedback. Did
No,
something-
I just got rid of the feedback. That's why
Oh, okay.
it's a few minutes in advance.
Gotcha.
And Bill, by the way, every single week, it's the exact same, like starting over, like it never happened. You've never seen anything like
Where's his confidence in you after all this time?
Dude. I mean, you've seen me play AV guy at Chirodestiny seminars. It is not pretty.
Whatever you
I don't
say.
know how we get it to work, but it is not the prettiest.
That's great.
All right. Dr. Tokar is joining us, and Dr. Kluber is joining us. Kyle Petrina in the house. Heidi Keller.
Kluber.
Love it. Bill, Dr.
Hello.
Kluber practices in rural Illinois. She introduced me on one of our Zoom calls to her goats. I got to meet the goats.
Did you do any goat yoga?
I did not. I'm looking forward to it in the future.
My favorite.
Hi, Kimberly. Alrighty. So we'll give some people a few minutes, and then you could see the wonderful Bill Esteb in the house.
Bill, it's been a while. I'm looking forward to hanging a little bit.
Yeah, well, we could do this anytime you want. We don't even have to do it over Facebook or Zoom.
I do want to let you know, I spend a lot of time talking to Brett.
Yeah.
You may want to rescind that offer. Just putting it out.
Well, let's give it a go.
It's all good.
All right. Give it one more minute. Wozniak is in the house, people.
Wow.
Hi,
Woz. Love that girl.
That's a fellow Coloradian.
You see the flower blooming before your eyes.
That's right.
Unbelievable. Killing it.
Melanie Weingessner is in the house.
Buying Gessner.
Yes,
Melanie.
it's all over it. Jason Balthaser.
All the U's.
Yes, we love it. We love it.
All in. I love
We're
it.
going to give it one more minute. We are going to start on time as promised. In true Larry style.
Because if you're not early, you're late.
You
All
heard
right.
that. And they said you couldn't be taught. Awesome.
That's right.
Big Larry says hello, by the way. I spoke to him earlier.
I miss miss him so much.
Well,
He may jump on, I think he mentioned he may try
I
to
think
jump on.
Dave's going to try to jump on. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Doug Ness in the house. Hi, buddy.
Huggy Fresh.
Yeah, we're gonna. If you guys have any questions for Bill, and you guys are on Facebook Live, you could put it in the comment section. I can read your comments. So it is 9 o'clock sharp. Brett, what do you say? You ready?
Yeah, I think we should get started. Let's do it.
Okay, you got it. So, hi everybody. It's Rick Markson along with Brett Axelrod, who unfortunately, for lack of a better word, has a little technical difficulty with his video, but we have him on audio, and of course,
Hello.
there you go, Brett. And we have Bill Esteb, who Brett and I have a wonderful relationship with for a lot of years, and consider Bill to be one of the premier communicators in all of chiropractic. We know he's so super popular with all of you, and as we've been going through this really unique time, we've been reaching out to our own members and our own sort of group to continue to keep a dialogue going on the best ways to gain information, keep motivation, keep momentum. So Bill, first, we love you and welcome to our little Tuesday Night Live.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor and it's a delight to be able to do this without involving United Airlines.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're giving Bill a break. He doesn't travel as much.
That's right. So I want to start, if it's okay with you guys, because Bill, you may not even remember this, but back when Chiro Destiny is around for 10 years now.
Really?
And it is. We just had our anniversary.
Wow.
And as one of the first seminars we ever did was back up in Colorado at the ranch where they do Total Solutions. And it's one of the recordings that we still listen to, and all of our new members, it's sort of like this required listening, which I'm happy to send you, by the way. And you said to me probably the most impactful one sentence that I've used in coaching ever since, and I'm going to repeat it back to you, which was you had almost stopped cold, and you said this one sentence that silenced the room, which is, we are not in the spine fixing business or the spine straightening business. We are in the belief shifting business. Is this something that you say all the time, or was that just a one-liner that popped?
Oh, no, that's a core belief of mine.
Okay, so if we are not in the spine straightening business, we are in the belief shifting business. I would say this amongst all the time that all of us have been in practice, this is about the craziest time where chiropractors need the ability to help people shift beliefs. So can you take that sort of sentence and sort of run with it for a little bit as to how do you get chiropractors to shift their own beliefs based on the fear and based on the media and based on everything that's happening now? And then more importantly, how do they develop the communication skill to do it with patients?
Yeah, well, you want to make sure that you talk about germs as much as you talk about subluxations. I happen to believe that for most patients, germs trump subluxations. They're more interested in the dirty headrest paper or the fear of the dirty headrest paper than the subluxation cutting off the life force to their gallbladder or whatever. So I think one of the missed opportunities of many in many chiropractic offices is that they overlook the whole germophobia that we see manifesting in our culture right now. And you know, it's such a huge misdirection and such an ill-founded belief that it's kind of like, you know, where do you start? And one of the things that I've often recommended from time to time is that you have a visual demonstration of the germ theory in your practice. And one way of doing that, and once you see the idea, you can adapt it to what works best for you. But if I were in practice, in my adjusting room, I would have a beautiful carafe of black beans. And you can have anything you want. You could have corn or, you know, whatever. But I would use black beans because, of course, because what those beans are going to represent are germs. And what I would do is, if someone were concerned about the headrest paper or germs in general, I would go over to that carafe and I would pour a handful in my hand, and I would say, scientists have done a lot of research on these black beans, and what they have discovered is that these little black beans cause black bean bushes, because wherever they have found a black bean bush, they have found the remnants of one of these in the soil. So we kind of know for a scientific fact that these cause black bean bushes, kind of like germs. And then I would fake a sneeze. Of course, we can't do that these days, but I go, and I would throw these beans in the general direction of the patient, and they'd go all over the adjusting room. I said, careful now, these beans are going to germinate. And of course, they're not going to germinate because the circumstances aren't correct. You need water, moisture, sunshine, temperature, nutrition. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be part of that. And making the point in a dramatic way possible that's relatively easy to clean up. I mean, certainly easier than grass seed, that would be able to demonstrate the folly that germs alone are not it. Really, this all boils down to whether or not you're going to be a hospitable host, whether for the coronavirus or for the common cold or tuberculosis. Are you a good host? And helping individuals become poor hosts, I think, is part of the strategy of whole body health. And that's why I go back to the notion that in the century and a quarter of chiropractic history, the notion that we're into bones and joint dysfunction and curve restoration is a relatively new off-label purpose for chiropractic. Now, insurance companies want you to do, they want you to be a spinal mechanic, but that's not really what chiropractic ever was started out to be. It was about whole body health. The people that bailed chiropractors out of jail were showing up as families for whole body health, not for a spinal owie. And I think that's a significant piece of information, and I get a lot of hate mail about that, but it's the truth. So rant over.
So what I hear you say is probably something that chiro's been faced with in deciding which fork in the road they're going to take, which is, do I ignore the conversation of germs and the doctor's own belief system about germs and everything that's going with it, and whether I should wear a mask or not, and whether it's BS or not, and all of that? Or should I meet it head on and stake my claim and put my flag in the ground and let them know where I stand, with the risk of confusing them or alienating them and losing rapport? So how do you do that and still keep rapport?
Ask questions. And that might even mean that you need to put questions on the wall of your practice. Have them nicely framed in whatever, and put them up on the wall, or frame them in a poster as a mnemonic device to remind you to ask questions. Because the only way that you have a shot at changing someone's opinion is not by using a battering ram and forcing your opinion onto them. The only shot you have is to ring the doorbell and ask them to open the door. And you do that by being authentically, genuinely interested in what their beliefs are. We tend to get on this high horse where we feel the moral obligation to tell them the truth and give and hand it down from on high, which is exactly backwards from the way it actually works. If you were sitting on a park bench, suitably socially distanced from someone, having lunch, and you were asking them, and you had this belief about something, you wouldn't use a battering ram. You would ask them questions about, well, how did you form that opinion, or how did you reach that conclusion, or did you have a did you ever get the measles or did you ever get the mumps, and actually show up curious about the germ experience that patients have had. And what's interesting is that when you show interest in what they believe without judgment, because you're authentically interested, as if you were a landing party from the starships and you're trying to figure out what these human people believe, you would discover that the guard is dropped. There isn't this fight attitude, and now you can have a conversation that's a lot more intelligent and actually has a greater chance of having a change as a result of it.
Right, because one of our members had texted me and said, could you please ask, what are some of the ways of discussing wearing of masks or vaccine, the whole upcoming vaccine thing or the medication treatment that's coming down the pike, to help them understand the vitalistic approach without making them feel wrong. So it's asking the question first, then creating that dialogue where it really is a story.
And I'd take it a step further. I would say you only divulge your point of view if asked. Now, that's going to take an Academy Award winning Oscar performance for a lot of chiropractors. But you only share your point of view if asked.
That's a lot of tongue biting.
Here's what you'll discover. Very few people are interested in your opinion.
What about, Bill, what about people who have never been to a chiropractor before? They're hurting, they're in pain, blah, blah, blah. And, we talk about techniques to transition them from meeting them where they are, in essence, over a period of time to lifetime wellness care by incorporating all those techniques and asking questions and learning about them and so forth. But a lot of patients won't know to ask any types of questions like that if they don't have the experience, they've never never heard it before. So
sure.
Yeah.
So you can always, as you're helping them get onboarded into your practice, you can explain that they're in the right place. You've helped a lot of people with problems like this. Now, chiropractic is capable of much, much more than what you've brought into us, and we're delighted to be able to help you. In fact, we have some people who bring in their children, blah 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 blah. But we need to help you with what you've come in for today. So let's get started there. So you can drop a hint without hitting them over the head.
Right.
Because I think one of the biggest myths that floats around, and factually very painful, that floats around this profession is that whether or not a patient chooses wellness lifetime care is up to you and how you somehow say it or sell it or tell about it. And it doesn't work like that.
Right.
It's amazing where, I still feel every time I hear you speak, I start to write things down and take notes. Like I sat in those first seminars, and a lot of what you're saying is similarly themed to X amount of years back, because the truth is just the truth. The way to communicate is the way to communicate, regardless of whether it's a coronavirus or it's a regular Tuesday and you're doing a spinal screening.
That's right.
So I want to just sort of dovetail a little bit, because the other thing that I remember as the truly original Bill Esteb thought was about doing a media fast. Back in the day, you were a very big proponent of everyone turning off the television for X amount of time. And now, above all, people are addicted to media, where they are they're just trying to garner as much information as they can about this whole thing. So they're either watching the news constantly or watching Facebook constantly, or, they're on this info, hoarding this information. How do you handle that in this kind of time? And don't say same thing. To help people conquer their sort of addiction to this, I need to know.
Well, you've used the word addiction twice. And I think that that's a huge insight and clue as to what we're actually talking about here. The dopamine hit that Facebook and social media and all the rest of it is designed to produce is addictive. That's what it's designed to do. That's what all media is designed to do. It's designed to attract as many eyeballs as possible that can be sold to advertisers, because when the product is free, you're the product. So at some point, you have to decide whether or not you want to be a pawn, whether or not you want to be used, whether you want to be fodder for those corporate interests. And here's the beauty of it, because I still propose a media fast. 40 days is great. Social media, newspapers, any type of television, digital screens, what have you. If that sounds scary, you need it more than anyone else. Because here's the secret that I've learned after conducting this myself many, many, many times, and that is there's nothing on that media that you can do anything about. All it is designed to do is to create fear, because fear will get you to come back again and again to see how it all ends. So I don't think anything's changed in that, but I think that the dire need to be in but not of is more important than ever before. If you want to be salty and spicy to the people you are trying to influence, you cannot be led in some type of sheeple mentality by the same media that they're being exposed to. There's no way to rise above it. There's no way to be outside the box if you're in the water with the fish. Don't even know they're in water. So I don't know. I just think that chiropractors of all people, who are the radicals, who are the counterculture. These are the people who said, no, I'm going to do this because it's right, even though no one else understands or likes it. I'm going to go for the truth. These are the people above all that need to rise above media. I don't know what else I can tell you other than the fact that if you got the Joneses for something flickering, what you might want to give some thought to is, what are you trying to avoid in your own life that allows you to find comfort in voyeuristically looking what's going on in other people's lives? What won't you confront? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid to look under that rock in your own relationship or spending time with your kids or your spouse? Because these are escape mechanisms. That addiction that you feel is the same addiction that someone feels with alcohol or almond M&Ms or potato chips or pornography or anything else. It is an addiction. And that's the first thing to accept. And then after that, there you go. But you got to want it. That's for sure.
Right. So one of the things that Brett and I let's call us the self-proclaimed headspace guys of our profession, where our coaching, our seminars, you've been around us for all these years, you've been around Larry for all these years, where yes, there's the groups that tend to be on the new patient thing or the day one, day two thing or the systems and procedures thing, where we take headspace as the umbrella and the values-based life overall. But so much of what we believe to be the limiting step for people or the limiting problem is fear. So now you're dealing with people with fear of the biggest fears, the fear of death, the fear of losing a family, or the fear of fear. So, with your evolution, where everything sort of started on this analytical bent, and then you sort of found your own peace and your own inner workings to try to conquer fear and then teach others how to. Any specific advice on how to, not only for themselves, quiet themselves to get rid of fear, but how do you communicate that not just to patients, but to staff members as well? Because we've seen a lot of teams, CAs almost rebel against the doctors. I'm not coming in, like lose my number, the whole thing. So fear's been a pretty big theme for this whole thing.
Yeah, you're not going to talk anybody out of fear. You can't rationalize them out of fear. Fear is an interesting phenomenon because it is my belief that it is two things. One, it is an emotion. It's a kidney emotion. And it is also a spiritual force. My belief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? neither of those work very well or respond to an educated mind. One thing that does work is action. If you're in fear, then you need to recognize that, number one, you are living in the future, because right now there's no fear. Right now. Now, in 2 weeks' time, or when you can't pay your mortgage in 90 days or whatever, there's fear out there, but it's not here. So whenever you are in fear, you know you're not present, or you are powerless.
Awesome.
Good.
You only have power when you are present. And that's why one of the biggest, hugest practice growth tool is to be 100% present. Difficult for mere humans. But when I tour offices of practitioners who are, taking names, making a ruckus, these are people who are incredibly present. And when you're present, you can shorten the visit because you have higher amplitude. The tendency for low volume practitioners is to flatten the curve and lengthen the visit. So you decrease the impact and amplitude of the visit. So it all goes back to being present. I mean, that's the short answer.
So I'm going to chime in for a second. One of the things that we teach is, like you're saying, is how to increase your vibration, which is along the same lines, of course. What are some techniques that you offer to chiropractors, their staff, or as a team to help them become even more present than they could be or should be?
I know of one device that many have found helpful, and it requires going to Staples or Home Depot, or no, not Home Depot, but Office Depot, and going to the area of the stationery store there where they sell those Avery stickers. You know what I mean? Like like mailing labels. Well, instead you buy a sheet of 1/4 inch diameter fluorescent orange stickers.
Okay.
And that is going to be a secret among your team in the practice. That when you see one of these, this is a reminder to become present. Because all it is mindfulness. It's about coming back, getting out of the future, coming back to present. And one way of doing that is putting in surreptitious places in the practice, so that only the doctor can see it when he or she's looking at a particular angle behind a particular flower pot or whatever like that. And every Monday, someone on the team is responsible for moving those stickers around, getting rid of the old ones and putting them in new places. And that is a habit that can help create the mindfulness of being present.
So that's one great action step to take, which is fantastic. Are there, what would you say if you could tell our audience maybe another 2 or 3 action steps, as you said, to get into action about communicating this to patients who haven't seen in a while? Maybe they're on the fence. And like you said before, you can't convince them of anything, but there are ways to communicate from your practice to these people. What are some things that they should be communicating, and what are some of the best ways they could be communicating the message, since you're in the patient media business?
Well, one of the things that I have rejected over my almost 40-year career is a canned visit-by-visit communication plan. It sounds canned because it is canned and patients can tell it's canned. It's not authentic. That's not how real people interact with each other.
Right.
So I'm reluctant to say, well, here's the 3 things you need to do on every visit. I don't think that exists. I think the most powerful thing that you can do is to drop your guard, take off your chiropractor hat for a second, and just figure out, where are you hurting? And I don't mean in your spine. I mean, where are you hurting? Where's your pain points? What's bothering you? What's keeping you awake at night? What's been the biggest disappointment? The greatest frustration? I mean, this is about forgetting about fixing spines and subluxations, but getting inside and know that you care. You care for them as an individual, not because they're a spine or a case or a potential reactivation. This is because we're humans here, and our genetic lineage is to touch each other.
Mhm.
That's what we do. We're not supposed to be distant. We're social animals. So it's about getting close, at least emotionally. And I think that in the long, big picture, you're going to come out much further ahead. If you drop the pretense, you don't have to sell them on chiropractic. Heck, they're in front of you. They said yes. Your mission now is to create connection. Because when you have connection, that's when oh, by the way, Doc, I was just thinking, and suddenly a conversation occurs that you couldn't have planned it in a million years,
Right.
simply because you showed up as you instead of having an agenda.
We had
Love
a
it.
conversation not too long ago, Brett, if you remember, I think it was in one of the seminars even, where we're not in the spine straightening business, but it's
We're in the people
also
business.
taking the relationship past the clinical part.
Right.
And you're not responsible for their spine, and you're not even necessarily responsible for their health. You're willing to take responsibility for their overall happiness in life and to be a part of that and connect to that.
That's
So
whole body health.
if they don't have a good relationship with their spouse, somehow that sort of plays into your relationship or their job or their finances. It's really connecting on all those levels.
Right. Without necessarily, I mean, many of us who suffer from testosterone poisoning want to fix that marriage or fix that career. Please don't.
Nope.
Just lend your ear.
None of our business.
I think it's about creating more like a partnership between you and the patient. We're
Mhm.
partners in this together. I can't want it more than you do, but I want to be there with you so we can get to the bottom of this and really help you live your best life possible.
Right. And so you do that by showing up available rather than having an agenda.
Right.
Yeah. So with your guys' permission, I'm going to just switch gears just to a whole other direction. And chiros have downtime. You know, and I know for myself, I'm in practice now 25 years. So I think Brett's now 28. And, you know, I'm sure have all said to ourselves, man, if it was only 10 years ago and I was only half as busy, I could clean this and I can do that and I can retrain that and I can implement that. And here we are. You just got your wish where now you're half as busy. And there's an opportunity. Any specific sort of systems or things that you would say, I recommend that you take this downtime and look at these specific areas?
You know, it's interesting you should mention that because for Perfect Patients, the website company that I'm with, I recorded a 26-minute video, which is called 5 to Survive and Thrive. It's 5 things you could do during this downtime. And what I would like to do, rather than restating that, is I would just invite your tribe to dial up that video and watch it. And after this little soiree we have together, I'll share the link with you, and you can share it with your members if you'd like. But if I can remember them, one is to state management. That's the first thing. Without state management, you got nothing. Second thing would be to evaluate your digital marketing. This is a time to look at the websites of your top competitors. What are they doing that you like? What are you doing better? What's going on? I mean, everyone's got their head down during regular times. Now's the time to poke your head up and see what the rest of the world's doing, because it's spinning beyond and past. Another thing, of course, which I'm guessing your members wouldn't have to deal with is just declutter the practice. Because as Larry would say, success does not flow into chaos. And I did pick up.
I just saw that Larry just joined, and he just
Oh,
said,
really?
"I love Bill Esteb and how he thinks."
Oh, well, because
You
he
and your brain, just in case you were feeling a little low.
okay. So digital marketing, of course, would be something to take a look at, cleaning up the chaos, because your brain knows where all those pieces of paper are and all that junk in the drawer in the closet, and you've closed the door, but your brain knows where it is, and so it's being used. One thing that I recommend that. And it was kind of sneaky for me to do this, but I said, you know what? This is the time to get your procedure manual figured out. And because what happens to me frequently when I do telephone consultations is I'll say, well, when I sense that the doctor is having challenges with communication with staff or calling audibles all the time, I'll say, well, do you have a procedure manual? Oh, sure I do. Well, I've never worked in a chiropractic office. Could I come to your practice, read the procedure manual, and win at the front desk? And there's always this long pause.
It's right.
So it's time to get that put together, because
or updated, one of the two.
yeah, and maybe it's a one-dayer because it just needs to be tweaked. But you've got to get that information down onto paper, because systems run the practice, people run the systems. And until you do that, you've got a personality-based practice, you're calling audibles, and your staff hates it. So there you go. But I'll give you the link to that video, because
I think you put it up. It was 5 ways to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, she already put it up as a link onto Facebook Live.
There you go.
And we'll make sure everyone has it as well. All right, so I would think that because of your longevity with the patient communication side of the world, from the hopefully the lessening of restrictions and people are allowed out of their homes, and practices over the last couple of weeks have almost really week by week followed exactly what we've thought so far, which is my belief system was that people will change their lifestyle for about 3 to 4 weeks, and then they're going to start to break rules, and they're coming out no matter what you say. So we've seen with our own members that volumes are starting to go up. People are starting to call. People are starting to come out. So you said in terms of social media, looking at your website, looking at your own social media, your own search engine optimization. 2 questions I would have would be, one, what about the appropriate recall procedures of utilizing technology, of course, but what's the messaging? And the second aspect, which would be on the new patient aspect, you have the recall side, and then you have the new patient side, where you have the lifeblood of a practice is still attraction. How do you handle both of those as the days, weeks, and months coming up?
Which one is more valuable to you?
For me?
Well, no, that's the question you ask.
That's easy.
That's the question you asked, because if I were running the zoo, reactivations of existing people is where the action is, and that's the fastest response rate you're going to get. More than likely, they're going to be more cash than any other type of patient. So I would, if there was a deadline saying, on May 15th you can now open your doors, I would say on that first day or 2 or 3 or 4, it would be, hey, we're only reserving it for our existing people that have, that we'll have a relationship. Their file is here, blah 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 blah. So that's the first thing that I would do, is because I value that tribe more than newcomers. When it comes to the newcomers, it may very well be that because we're in some rather unusual economic times, that you may need to have greater flexibility about your fee structure than maybe you would like to have. And that's why I always recommend Chiro Health USA, so that you have a medical discount plan, so that you've got legal ways of having greater flexibility in your fee structure. But I do think that that's going to be a factor. And I think that if you can put your own needs behind you just for a moment and say, yeah, I got mortgage due. I got my own financial needs and I need money, 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 money. If you can just set that aside a little bit and say, how can I help introduce chiropractic to some strangers? How can I help get people back under care, back under the habit of showing up here weekly or monthly or whatever it is? To me, is reforming that habit is more important than whatever fee you're going to extract that first week back.
I love it. I love
So
it.
I'm going to chime in as we come to the close here. So what I've learned here today, what I've heard here today from you, Bill, so I want everybody to kind of really grasp this, is because there is unknown, the future is a little bit unknown. There's a little bit of uncertainty. There is fear, all these different things. Really, the key is to, the word that keeps coming back up for me is connecting and or reconnecting to your people. And that it's not about necessarily the scripts or the procedures, the systems, although important, and here's an opportunity to clean them all up and do all those things. But what it really comes down to is connecting with people on such a level that they know you, that you care about them, that you love them, that you really want to help them. And then kind of everything else will fall back into place. You're not worrying about what's going to happen. You have no control over that per se, but getting present and staying in the moment with some of the techniques that you shared with us. And we can say, well, it should always be that way. And it's true, but I think now more than ever, especially with the environment that we're in, to get out of your head space and get into your heart space. And I think by connecting and doing a better job communicating your emotions and feelings with patients so they really get that you're really there for them is probably the biggest practice builder there is. And by getting present and increasing your vibration, your attraction goes way up and things will start to manifest automatically. And then you can add in all the other techniques with it. But that's the big message I got from tonight. Do you want to just maybe just share a moment on that for you in closing?
Well, I think, Brett, that was just gorgeous. That if that's what happened tonight, then this was fantastic. This was well worth, everyone dropping everything to do this.
Yeah.
Because you two do this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes across is trust.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is all about. Is that when you show up in that adjusting room with an agenda, it goes south. You're trying to use your educated mind to make something happen. And you're trying to arrange the world in your vision.
Right.
When in fact, what we get to do is be participants and part of this dance. And we don't have to lead all the time. In fact, be a little nicer if we didn't have to all the time. And that starts by first trusting ourselves.
Hmm.
And I think last week, instead of doing a Tuesday Night Live, we just did a Zoom with our members only. And we had our 40, 50 people were on, and the theme of it ended up being gratitude. There were some of our members that had to shut down, Canada, I know Colorado for a bit, Kentucky, I think. There were a couple of areas that were hard hit. Some members had some potential exposures, whatever it was. And the overall theme was gratitude for being able to stay open and being seen as essential by their government or whatever. And that made them feel they got that little sense of attaboy, like, hey, I really am something. So they needed an extrinsic little, pat on the back. Some people were grateful that they still had the opportunity to serve. Some people had the gratitude that they didn't lose their business that they built over time. But those who are willing to stay in that gratitude for whatever it was for them, we're seeing the biggest expansion from. And some of it was just the gratitude to stay home with their kids more. Some people learned how to, learn some of their kids' likes and dislikes and learned how to play video games or, got asked to help them with their homework for the first time in a decade or whatever it is. And there's so much possibility thinking if you are able to link to the gratitude of right now. Certainly not expected, but and we started our first, Brett and I immediately communicated with our people and with chiropractors in general. The first thing we said is, this is an opportunity if you choose it to be so. Is there anything else that we're missing in terms of the opportunity?
Nothing really shows up for me other than what we've talked about. But I'll take that back. The opportunity that no one talks about is the fact that this is probably the most significant, uncalled for, unasked, and unrequested pattern interruption that anyone could ever have created. You have the opportunity of creating a new snapshot of who you are. You have an opportunity to draw a line in the sand and say, I ain't doing that anymore. You have an opportunity, and everyone will go along with it and say, oh, well, I see that you had this, you've turned over a new leaf, or you've made a New Year's resolution, in the middle of May. That's beautiful. But don't pass up the opportunity to stop doing something that you've always wanted to stop and start doing something that you've dreamed about being able to start. And that might just simply be to start dreaming again. But that's the opportunity. That's the opportunity of a lifetime.
Well, speaks volumes.
Spot on.
So, I'll let Brett say it in this, whatever's on his mind in a sec, just as a close. But for years, Brett and I were on the road with you and with others, and as somewhat of a conscious or unconscious things based on the events of our lives. And we came off the road somewhat to really hunker down with our tribe and our team. And these are the moments that I'm the most thankful for, because of a friendship like ours and the ability to communicate and express to us chiropractors, or even lay people or staff members or patients, to instill some wisdom or impart some sort of aha moment or whatever. So, I love you like a brother, and it's just so refreshing. Your consistency is so overwhelmingly, it's a warm blanket, man. I mean, it's the greatest. So, and all I did was pick up the phone and ask, and you were right there for us as always. So I'm going to just say, on behalf of the Chiro Destiny members and from the zillions of chiros around the world that you've helped, I just want to say thank you, and we love you.
And I'll just add to that, Bill, that what I truly love about you is your authenticity, that you're willing to stand up, not even being a chiropractor, but being in the profession and around us for so many years, and your belief and understanding and comprehension of who we are as a tribe and what we're trying to do and try to help humanity. And again, it just comes back to falling in love with what we do and really wanting to help people on a much deeper level. And that really trumps anything that's going, and no pun intended, but that trumps anything that's going on in the world at any time. And if we just let go of all of that, just remember who we are and why we're here. And that's the message I think that you really gave tonight. So it wasn't necessarily about procedures and action steps is what everybody thinks they want. What's most importantly is having a shift in your belief, having a shift in your thinking. And that is, to me, much more far reaching than anything else. So I believe that message came across. It did for me loud and clear, which is what I was almost anticipating, because when we're around you and we have these conversations with you, that's what you bring to the table, which I adore and love about you. And that's what this profession really needs. So for those of you who joined in tonight and shared with us with Bill's knowledge and expertise and his insights, I think it was a real gem. It was a chance to just stop for a moment, get a better understanding of who you are, get a better appreciation and gratitude and love for what we have to offer. And, when we talk about going back to the Lion King, when he always says, remember who you are. I think if we can all do that based on what we learned here tonight, the future is really bright for this profession, but we've got to learn to let go and refocus back on that. And I think that's the biggest message I got from you, Bill. I can't thank you enough. Love and appreciate you. And to all of our members and non-members and guests and family out there, thank you so much for being a part of this and sharing this with you, because we have a lot of work to do and a lot of people to help. So that's my 2 cents. And Rick, if you want to just wrap it up and
It's
close it up.
certainly follow everything Bill does on patientmedia.com, Perfect Patients website. I hope you all get your subscription to Monday Morning Motivation. We read that in the office every week. Concise, just like everything you do, it just cuts right to the quick. We'll hopefully see you guys again next week for Tuesday Night Live. And Bill, anything we can ever do for you, we love you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks,
night.
Bill.
See you soon.